But also it's so exciting because I have created incredible memories from this world. Like I have a photo right behind me of my triathlon. World's worst swimmer here for the record.
What if there are things we never had the opportunity to learn? We've all been to school or training, but there are things they never taught us that actually make a powerful difference in life. I'm here to share with you all the pieces you've been missing: mindset, health, success, and more. And we'll all learn together from guests along the way. We may not have learned it the traditional way, but oh my goodness, let's keep learning how to do things differently. OMG, Teach Me Tribe. Hello. Welcome to this latest episode. I am excited about today because I think this is a topic that is really going to resonate with, I dare say, everybody listening. We are going to talk about feeling great about yourself in pictures. And even more than that, we're going to dig into how pictures become memories for us and how we can use movement to feel good about our body and kind of create that confidence. And have you ever noticed in your family pictures that maybe you're the one that's not in the picture? So we're going to talk about all of that. And I think this is going to be really powerful. And my guest today, Christine, has a really cool business that relates to all of this. So Coach Christine left behind the corporate world to pursue a bigger purpose in the nonprofit space. And while she loved connecting organizations to the communities they serve, she still felt like she could make a bigger impact. So she pursued her passion and love of movement by getting certified and started coaching individuals, groups, teams, and organizations. And she works with her co-host and co-coach, Shelby. They started TFB Productions to bring their vision of creating a community where all runners and walkers are welcome, no matter your speed and your skill, and embracing what makes us all unique while finding that common ground that we all have, and that's movement. So I really think that that is such an interesting idea and an interesting business, and I'm excited to talk to you. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much. I am so excited and honored to have an opportunity to chat with you. Absolutely a huge fan of the podcast. And anytime that we can learn something new and have a great takeaway as we continue throughout our day is just a really great way of kicking off every single opportunity that we have.
I love it. And well, I agree with that. So yes. Well, let's just dive right in, because the first thing that I always want to know is your story, and your intro tells us a little bit of that, but there's always more of a story to it. And you have a very unique business and purpose. So tell us more about how you created that.
Yes. So I was the wallflower, book nerd, very quiet in the background. I remember growing up and kind of envying my mother, who was larger than life and who could make friends with anyone and had a very vivacious, exuberant type of approach to life. And that wasn't me at all. And I had created this persona where I was the person who was hiding in the photos and not necessarily living my best life, and more on the sidelines and spectating. And through a few different, my mother was diagnosed with ALS, my father had a stroke, a couple different things, I started to decide to move my body because I was feeling, of course, quite sad, overwhelmed, anxious, started moving my body. And for me, it was walking. Walking became running, and running became training for a marathon. And I say that running specifically helped me to rewrite my story with every step that I took. But now I've come to realize that for running is, for me, very transformative. It's movement that's magical. So for you, it may be swimming or going for a good yoga session or walking with the dog. But movement helps us to rewire our brains and helps with that boost of mood and elevation of confidence, and like you can tackle the world. And in that process, I started to see I can live that big, exuberant, joyful life that I've always wanted, that I envied and was spectating. I can be in front of the camera and have those things happen. I don't have to look back with regret, but it was because of movement. So again, that's kind of what I pursued and have been able to welcome many folks over to our brunch crew. But I will say both Coach Shelby and myself do have a deep passion for working with our female athletes and our female clients, because as you mentioned, Cheryl, it feels like so often women have so many hats. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a best friend, I'm the best employee ever, that they don't ever get to know who they are and wear that title and that hat or create the life that they want for themselves because they have all these other responsibilities. So they put themselves on, I usually say they don't even put themselves on the stovetop. It's not even the back burner. Like it's somewhere still, like it's in the deep freezer sometimes. So we try to help them through movement as being a pathway to carving that time for themselves and then seeing what else is possible as they continue to move forward.
I really love that. And I have, so full disclosure, everyone, I do not care for running, but I did do a running program one summer and worked up to, I think the most I got was 11 miles or 12 miles.
That's
So I was
incredible.
training for a half marathon and I just didn't end up running it. But I get it that movement is powerful and I just simply do different kinds of movement.
Yeah.
But I never thought about it in the way that you're thinking about it, that it can improve our confidence and then maybe relate to how we show up in the world and how we feel good about how we show up in the world, which is such a powerful thing.
Yeah, from just a quick little mood boost, which of course we have the science that shows that just a quick little 10, 15, 20 minutes of any kind of aerobic activity will help to boost our endorphins, help us to boost a little bit of endocannabinoids, which is shown to kind of be like a little bit of a runner's high is what they usually call it, but isn't necessarily just from running. And then of course there are the aspects of feeling better. So we are very careful that we make sure that people approach movement from the perspective of feeling good in their skin, not necessarily shrinking down to fit an ideal or to fit even in those jeans that they had in their closet from when they were 18, but more about feeling good for who they are right here and now. And I think that that's where you start to see people being more willing to speak up for themselves in a meeting where maybe before they might be a little bit more hesitant, but it's because they start to come back to finding who they are. They have more time to process what I need, hearing their own voices, hearing that voice in their head telling them they can't do it and going ahead and superseding that helps to translate for all the different aspects for sure.
Great points. Great points. Everything is connected. And if we're feeling good about ourselves, then we probably are more likely to speak up in the meeting, to use your example. Yeah, that's powerful. And I like in general the idea that exercise is not about punishment, because sometimes it feels that way.
It can. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that there aren't days where it definitely feels that way for myself as well. And it is, I think when you start to change the narrative of, I want to be able to move because I want to be able to keep up with my kids, or I want to be able to move because I want to keep up with my grandchildren, or I want to scale my personal version of Mount Everest. I want to be able to ride a roller coaster. Whatever that case may be, is where you start to see that the movement is to allow us to live our life so that when we are incapable, because there will come a day where we are incapable of doing these feats, we can still look back and say, I created the life that I wanted. I had a life well lived. I had some challenges, had some obstacles, but again, I was able to actually really live that life. So I think that at the end of the day, that's what drives me. But also it's so exciting because I have created incredible memories from this world. Like I have a photo right behind me of my triathlon. World's worst swimmer here, for the record. Like I came in dead last in the swim portion. I trained an entire summer. Did not matter. The minute I got into the open water, I panicked, even though you weren't supposed to. And I literally came in dead last. But that memory of being able to ride my bicycle past the vehicle assembly building on the Space Center property, the fact that I did not give up, that's something that no one can take that away. I will never be a triathlete. It's not happening for me in the future. It's not something that I gravitate toward, but it's a memory that I created and something that I could say that's an accomplishment, achievement that I absolutely do feel good about.
That's wonderful. And I like that you are talking about memories, because that's kind of where we're going to take this when we talk about pictures as well. So tell us a little bit more about why you just gave a great example of a picture from your triathlon, but what is it about having these pictures from our lives that is so powerful?
It's such a great question. And actually, I just read recently in a publication that states that one of the things that they're starting to see is a trend of folks creating photo albums again, where we now have like thousands of photos in our cell phones, but we're not doing anything with them. And there is quite a bit now where folks are trying to see that they want a tangible, physical item of helping them kind of have that nostalgic memory. Realistically, I am a very big believer of being in the moment and not necessarily sitting behind your phone and your lens all the time, but also knowing that being able to look back and have that a little bit of memory stroll might give you that little bit of that dopamine, a little bit of that pickup whenever you need it. I personally have a digital frame in my living room. And in
Me
the
too.
mornings when I'm journaling, I sit down and look at it and it just gives me a little boost of like, oh, 6 years ago, I was in Prague, and I would have never been in Prague if it wouldn't have been because of this, and this, and that chain of events. So there is a lot of that. I think that at the end of the day, we live in such a very beautiful space where we have so much information coming our way and we have so much that's digital. And I love that. I'm not going to take that away from a technology standpoint. Clearly I have a digital frame, but there's also this beauty of being able to like recapture our days gone by. It helps to give us that boost of confidence, that boost of excitement, and just have a little bit of nostalgia memory. And I think especially important for women, and I'm sure men as well. Again, I work primarily with women, but especially important for women, I believe, as those days with your littles go so quickly.
Yes.
And before you know it, they're out of the house. And that picture may be the best way for you to be able to recapture that feeling of their first bike ride or the first time that you guys were able to go to a theme park or an amusement park or their graduation. And what I really want to drive home is while it may be something that we don't feel great about because maybe we've put on weight or we had a little bit of difficulty with that, is just feeling comfortable to get in front of that camera so that you could say, hey, I was there with my kid. I wasn't like the ghost. There wasn't like Casper the Friendly Ghost taking these photos. It was me. I was there with that child. So I think that's really what's most important, is it's living in that memory as well.
There's a couple things you said that I think are really powerful. And one of them is, and I suppose they're related, but one of them is I do see people kind of experiencing life holding their phone camera
Mm-hmm.
all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yes.
And I think all the time is too much. And that's what
Yes,
you said.
absolutely.
We want to see where we are and what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing and not, watch the concert through the phone the entire
Mm-hmm.
time.
Absolutely.
Good point. And I guess we sort of all figure out our own happy medium there. But that being said, if we're getting ourselves in the picture,
Exactly. You're
then
forming the memory
suddenly,
and the connection. So
yeah.
yeah, you're applying all the senses. So they have, again, I'm not quoting it in the exact study and I don't know the exact details with it, but I do recall where when you are taking the photos, as beautiful as those photos may be, and you love to look at them, you tend to have almost a not as close of a recollection of forming that memory. So if you allow yourself to get in front of the lens and ask a stranger to come by and take a photo of you in this scenario with your family, if you will, it allows you to, one, actually have a physical token that you were there, but it allows you to connect. It allows you to connect to another person who the person who's actually taking the photograph, but with the people that you're in. I mean, isn't sometimes the most fun part about taking the photo of like jostling people around, like, where am I going to stand? Where are you going to stand? Somebody kind of grabbing you close so they can hug you for the photo, all of those different items. So I think that it is very important to get in front of the camera.
Yeah, I agree. And I do notice chunks of time as I look back at memories where I wasn't in front of the camera as much. And so if I notice that, then I would try to change it a little bit. And hopefully this is coming in a timely way so that if you're listening and you're noticing, wait, I'm not ever in the picture either,
Mm-hmm.
you can change that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So from that, I think that we get a lot into our head of, I don't love how I look right now. Like I'm having a bad hair day, so I'm going to skip being in the picture. Or maybe this dress isn't the most flattering for how I feel today. So this is where that movement comes into play, where there's a regular practice of your movement, because even if your body shape doesn't change, you feel better. And that will usually, that confidence relates to the camera. And then you just learn how to actually really capture that joy that you have inside and allow that to be captured in the memory. Now, I'm not going to pretend like there's not some really great ways of looking or feeling your best in front of that camera, of course, with playing with angles, making sure that the light's in a way where it's lighting the contours of your face, but not necessarily blinding you so that you're just squinting through. But generally, just a really good smile and having that confidence behind your eyes will radiate into the photo. And that's really the most important part when you look back at it.
It really resonates with me when you say that because years ago, well, not that many years ago, a few years ago, I had headshots done with a professional photographer
Mhm.
and I was really uncomfortable at first. And she kept saying to me, I need you to be happy. I will see it. I will see it in your eyes. And so eventually I was like comfortable enough, I guess, to feel happier about it. And she was like, yes, that, exactly that. Now, when I look back at my pictures, I don't really know how to see that, to see that I was happy
Mhm.
and it was showing in my eyes. But those pictures did turn out great. So there's something to what you're saying that we're communicating emotionally, maybe with how we're looking.
Oh, absolutely. So you may not have seen it right then and there, but you were exuding it because you felt it. So maybe she made a joke that made you kind of nervously chuckle, but then that chuckle turned into a little bit more of a giggle, or there was a bit more excitement. Maybe this specific person, I know that you're really big into your mood playlist. Music is one of the best ways if anyone is thinking of getting their photos professionally taken. Absolutely. A little
Mm.
3-minute joyful dancing it out to a really powerful song. Coach Shelby calls it her pump up songs. That's absolutely pivotal to help you in front of the camera. So asking if you can have a little bit of a playlist if you are getting professional photos taken. I also would say give yourself grace because for the first 15, 20 minutes, you're going to be uncomfortable. It's just that's realistic. It's going to be awkward. You don't know this individual usually. If you have an opportunity to meet with the photographer beforehand, that's always great. But knowing that still the minute they pick up the camera, you're going to freeze. So that's when you have to start allowing yourself to kind of almost consciously work through it by taking some deep breaths, asking if you can put on a really fun song, and just kind of dancing it out a little bit in your inside. So I am curious now that you mentioned that. So what are some of your favorite photos?
Oh gosh. That's a great question. I have a digital frame that
Mhm.
has about 700 pictures in it. And I
Ooh.
watch it like a movie because I never know what's coming. But what are some of my favorite pictures? It's really times that remind me of being together with a group of people and being really happy.
Right.
And
Having that joy.
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
all that the movement does is it helps you capture your joy so that when you go in front of that camera, it literally comes through. Again, if we feel good in our skin, it's going to be captured. If we feel loved and connected with the people we're with in that photo, it's going to be captured. If you feel really awkward and uncomfortable, I mean, let's be honest, we've all had those office corporate settings photos done where everybody's like really stoic and a little uncomfortable and our bodies immediately close up a little bit. They come across that way. It looks like, well, that's a team who
yep.
didn't want to work together. So it's just allowing ourselves to have those opportunities of learning what makes us feel good and how does that translate to capturing that memory in the photo. But I will say that it comes a little bit with practice and it comes a little bit with grace. And I think when I think of the premise of this incredible podcast, that's like at the foundation, right? Is practice and grace. You have to be willing to give yourself grace in front of like whenever you're trying something new, and you have
Yes.
to keep practicing it for it to become something that you actually feel comfortable with. We may not all go on to like grace the covers of Vogue, but we want to be able to at least be able to see our photos in a family album and be able to be like, yeah, we look happy. And that's really
Yeah.
what's important.
Yeah. And I heard the phrase at one point, smile with your eyes. And
Yeah.
so I try to think of that too. And that's exactly what you're saying is
Yeah.
it shows. Yeah.
Yeah, it's from being inside the other side of the camera quite frequently. I can usually feel the moment that the photo is exactly what the photographer is looking for because I have that feeling. I just feel that confidence. I feel it was emanating in my eyes and my expression.
Don't you wish sometimes that living well had a set of easy steps to follow or maybe a handbook for success? There are certainly many books out there that help, but wouldn't we love some easy tips that we can try right now? I've created for you 7 days of easy, free tips for living well. We're talking about sleep, food, movement, mindset, and a lot more. Even if you pick a few of these suggestions and give them a try, you will be starting down a path to amazing change over time. Make sure to go to www.bit.ly/OMG Teach Me podcast and sign up for your 7-day journey with me.
Now, for folks that are listening and aren't seeing this, I don't have a perfectly symmetrical face. I actually have a lazy eye. These are all things that I know that I'm aware of that I have to utilize makeup and the way that I angle my face in front of a camera to be able to kind of, I won't say hide it, but to allow the most flattering possible angles for me. So, because we do have this beautiful digital world now, this is where getting comfortable in front of that camera can be a bit easier. You can get a selfie stick and take practice. Like, what is it, tilting my face to the left that looks best, or is it to
Mm.
the right? And just allowing ourselves again to have that practice and have that grace and trying desperately not to be overly critical every single time that we look at a photo. So, this is where I think, again, that for me, and when I work with clients, it's creating that self love through movement and how we are beautiful and how we can move our bodies and how we're able to have this gift. But it could very well be that it has to be more of an affirmation practice with these photos, or maybe it is
Mm.
a learning how to style the clothing for our bodies to make us feel our best. And whatever those practice skills may be, is just continuing to be willing to do it. But ultimately, I know there's probably a couple of moms that are listening to this and they're like, I'm excited if I don't have a shirt on that has like spit up on it. So, like, that's like, I don't know what you're talking about. This girl is like living in a whole different world. So it's also learning, like, well, is it just as quickly as maybe pulling your hair down and running your fingers through it with a finger comb and letting that be more natural, or allowing that natural, like if it's, that messy bun life, go ahead and embrace it. But having that joy of playing with your kid and being in that memory is really what's most important.
Yes. So far, I hear you saying that movement is really powerful with how we come
Mhm.
across in pictures, whether it's generally to help us feel good about
Mhm.
ourselves and also maybe right beforehand to
Mhm.
get in the mood. And then the emotion, the happiness is
Mhm.
important behind how we come across. So let's dig in a little bit more in detail because you've kind of alluded to angles and lighting. Do you have any sort of general tips that people could try related to those things also?
Yes. So this is where almost taking like a little self evaluation. What do you love about yourself? If somebody was to ask you, what do you physically think is beautiful about your body? Because I think for women, the minute they hear a question like that, they panic inside and they think, I really like my personality and I love your personality and that's wonderful. But I want to know physically, what do you love the most? Is it your smile? Is it your collarbone? Is it your graceful hands? And try to think a little bit, not from a place of criticism, but a place of, hey, yeah, this is awesome. I have like the best legs ever. And you're going to then utilize those things to build in what you want to highlight in your photos. So for me, I do think that my face lights up a little differently when I smile, a really good, genuine smile. So for me, genuinely smiling, again, knowing that I have the lazy eye on my right side. So allowing myself to tilt my head slightly so that it does open up my eye a bit differently. Seeing the light and making sure that my face again is lit, very well lit. Posture is going to be super important. So if we are not feeling confident, we're going to slouch over. So this is a time where you're going to, even if you have to fake it till you make it, friends, you're going to want to definitely stand up much taller, elongate that posture, thinking about the fact that kind of almost like a little invisible string from the top of our head so that we have a really good, nice posture. This is not where we're going to practice sucking in our stomach to the point where we can't breathe. That's not going to be a good photo. So let's go ahead and work on diaphragm breathing, where you are breathing in nice and deep, and then you're engaging your core. You're not necessarily sucking it in. You're just allowing yourself to have a good deep breath. This is where movement beforehand,
Mm.
having a practice of movement is great, but having movement in your photos is phenomenal. In terms of even with headshots, bring a few props. Sometimes we're like, what do I do with my hands?
Good point.
So bringing in some props, it could be if, you are taking headshots and your business is, let's say you're a podcaster, then asking the photographer if you can bring your microphone. It doesn't need to get plugged in. You don't need to, you don't necessarily need to get into a role playing situation where you're talking like you're interviewing someone, but maybe like adjusting the microphone, seeing how you feel in front of the microphone, anything that you usually feel confident in is going to help to translate. Again, for all of the women and men that are rolling through here and they're thinking, I want more photos with my kids. Well, not only are they wonderful to have those memories, but also working with being natural with your kid. Are you guys usually really connecting when you go for like an afternoon walk? Then talk to the family photographer about making sure that they capture you guys walking, chatting, talking, even if you're in the process of saying, this is really weird and I don't know why we're doing this, it looks more natural. It looks more relaxed. I think that we have a lot of our ideas, and when we think of getting in front of the photographer, we go 1980s, 90s glamour shot style. And while I'm not throwing any shade to those photos, we want to be a bit more relaxed and a bit more natural because, again, those are the ones that we're going to feel most confident about and most excited about. So I'm a big fan of props to help us working with our hands. I'm a big fan of finding the right timing of day, going out in the middle of the day, and any professional photo for sure. And you're wearing your full garb, maybe you're wearing your business attire. You're probably going to melt if it's here in Florida. So you're not going to necessarily want to do that. So just finding, what do you feel good in? What do I really like so that I can highlight? So for me, I'm a big journaler. Some of my photos would be just me journaling. I know that sounds awkward and weird, but it's how I feel comfortable. I like being like cozied into my chair and writing and thinking and reading. So for a photographer to capture that, they're going to really get to see who I am, and it looks and translate beautifully to that photo.
I love that. And that probably translates to what you help a lot of your clients with, which is their race photos when they're so happy to be finishing, right? And that's
Yes.
coming through. Yeah.
Yes. So we do spend quite a bit of time with our or the athletes and our clients specifically where, hey, you're working 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months for this goal race. We just had Chicago just wrapped up and a lot of folks were out there. It was a gorgeous day. It was a wonderful, fast and flat kind of race. A lot of folks that were able to get their best times out there. Well, that's beautiful. And you were in it for those full 26 miles. But I guarantee give yourself 3, 4, 5 years, you're not going to recall quite as much. So you're going to want that photo to come across so that you can absolutely recall going past the Sears Tower or going past the Bean in Millennial Park, or like for New York City, coming off the Verrazano Bridge. These are iconic opportunities that you don't necessarily get every single day. And you want to make sure that you feel good in these photos so that when it comes your way, you're not thinking, well, what was I doing there?
Right.
So this is where we would definitely say the exact same things that I've talked about that translate, be it headshots or family photos. Be natural, smile, of course, have that really good posture, breathe through it. Because if you start to tense, if you start to feel uncomfortable, all of those things are going to absolutely translate to where you look miserable in your photos.
Right. And as we're talking, listeners, you can't see me, but I'm kind of thinking, well, how am I sitting and how am I breathing? I'm just like wiggling around in my chair. But that is a good point. And I like the visual of, with posture, that kind of the string from the crown of your head
Yeah.
pulling you up. Now, what do you say about things that I just hear generally people say about pictures are you should be having your chin out forward. You should have maybe the angle of the camera coming down towards you as opposed to up. Are those things all
Yeah,
true?
they can. And they can be sometimes there's some gorgeous pictures from a lower angle, that photos that people would naturally avoid because they hear that a lot. It depends on where the photographer is positioned or where the camera may be positioned, and maybe depending on what you're doing. Additionally, if you have that camera coming from below, that may be a beautiful opportunity to highlight more of like a lean silhouette where you have your foot slightly forward and it goes up the length of your leg, which makes you look taller or more elongated. Again, that goes back to playing to your great features. If your features are like, hey, I have a great set of gams, that may be a perfect angle for you.
Ooh.
If it's not, then you don't really feel comfortable. I personally have really strong, powerful calves that maybe don't look quite so lean and light in those photos. I probably wouldn't do necessarily that kind of an angle because where the camera's eye is closest is usually what appears the largest. So there is a little bit of that. So that's something to take in consideration. If you're busty and you actually don't particularly love your bust, having that camera at that chest level is going to make you look incredibly busty. So not something, if you prefer to have more of a focus on your face and your smile and your eyes, you are going to want to have that camera up a little bit higher so that it's focusing specifically on where that camera lens is closest to. Now, in terms of some of these, like jutting your chin forward, and then there's even the putting the roof of your, or putting your tongue into the roof of your tongue. I'm going to suggest that you guys practice that in front of the camera. Again, practice it in front of your mirror, because if you're waiting until the day that you have set up with your photographer to do these things, you're going to feel very awkward. And again, going back to, if you feel awkward and unnatural, it's going to translate. So even if it makes sense, it may not feel great, and it may take that photographer a bit more time to make you feel comfortable with it. So practicing beforehand. Also, researching your photographer. If people are thinking, I want some family photos, I want some portraits, I want to send, this is the year, I want to send out the Christmas family photos,
Right.
Whatever the case may be, interviewing your photographer to make sure you feel comfortable with them. And I think I could speak very frankly that just like we as coaches are more than okay with somebody interviewing us and deciding to go with somebody else because they connect, photographers are the same thing. At the end of the day, you want to make sure you have that connection so that it does translate over to your to your photos.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. And as I'm thinking about it, you asked me what some of my favorite pictures are. There are two pictures that came to mind as you were talking more. And one, they're both actually from my son's wedding. One is my son and his wife leaving the church and looking at each other, and you can
Yeah.
tell how happy they are.
Yeah.
And then the other one is my daughter-in-law and my daughter getting ready to pose for a picture together, but just laughing. And it's the happiness thing, isn't it?
Yes, yes. One of my favorite photos ever is my dad and I in my first dance, where he's hard of hearing. And so he usually reads lips. And someone caught a photo of him reading my lips, and the connection that we had there of having him, just, it could take me instantly back, transport me to how nervous we were to be dancing, of course, in front of everybody, but being able to like comfort each other, and him like look, it was just such a beautiful, real, how we live our daily life. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So a lot of us put a lot of focus on the wedding, and that may be the one and only time that we're willing
Good
to
point.
spend
Yes.
money on weddings. I'm going to challenge folks to consider maybe looking at creating those memories and hiring those professional photographers outside of just those really big life moments. And I know we tend to think of splurging for ourselves as something maybe with a bit more of like a tangible item, maybe a big TV, or I don't know, a new household appliance. Everybody, I feel like, purchased all of the appliances that end up underneath those shelves. I would love to see somebody actually start to put money aside and budget for photos for themselves, be it just you and your significant other, be it you and your dogs, whatever it is, so that when you're in your 70s, your 80s, hopefully we all get to be octogenarians, but when you're later on in life, you have these beautiful crafted photos. Do you need a professional photographer? Absolutely not. Digital cameras are incredible nowadays, but do you deserve it? Yeah, you do. At the end of the day, you really do.
I love it. And it is not easy to take pictures where people are laughing either. So maybe a professional could do that better than we could.
I think so. I think, again, because it's almost it's a glimpse. What's so beautiful about photos for me, and I've always been such a fan of photography, is it's almost like a voyeuristic experience. And then how beautiful that we get to almost have that external, out of body voyeuristic aspect of seeing ourselves, that window of our life.
Wow, what an interesting phrase. That's going to stick with me. And the other thing that's going to stick with me, and I'm going to say it again because I think for listeners, this is really going to be impactful. What you said about where the camera is making the part of your body that's closest to it appear the largest is huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. Suddenly, a bunch of things fell into place for me about if I think back on this or that picture, like, why did this look so big, or why was that?
Yeah.
Well, now I remember why, because of where the camera was. Yeah.
In working with women too, there's a comedian, and it strikes out. She's hilarious. And she says something to the effect of, this is where it translates differently. And she relates it to clothes. If women go in and try on clothes and the clothes don't fit, they automatically say it's my body. Like, oh, I need to lose weight. It's my body. And, a man goes in and he tries on something, and he immediately comes out. He's like, that jacket just didn't work. Like that, it's wrong with the jacket. It's not wrong with you. So what I would like you guys to kind of look at it with the camera, it's not the photo that you hate. It doesn't mean that you hate yourself. It was just a bad angle. So take it external and learn how to like work on that. That is an angle I'm never going to use again because that one wasn't quite flattering. So again, it's not from seeing it from our deficiencies, but seeing it more from how do we work
work on those things that necessarily aren't quite so flattering for us.
Yes, I love it. And the other thing with pictures, and I, in case anybody doesn't realize this, I am a recovering super critical person about pictures of myself. So I am the queen.
I think join the club,
this.
friend, because I'm sure it's probably like 99% of us.
Yeah. The thing about pictures, though, is that the more we can enjoy them now, the better. Because I don't think I've ever looked back at a picture from the past and thought, oh gosh, I look like crap. I think, wow, I look so young, or I look so thin, or I look so whatever. I mean, we want to have those memories.
Emoji hands like preach for sure when you're saying that, because absolutely, I know everyone who's listening right now has had that, where in the moment, if they were to have been able to see the photo, again, I'm older than maybe some of your audience. So before, back in the day, friends are going to tell you, you couldn't see your photos immediately. You had to wait until they were printed up. But for any friends of ours that do remember those days, I remember like going back and getting my roll of film and be like, oh, I don't love this. I look horrible. And now if I go through those photos, albums and seeing, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was adorable. Yes. Like, why were guys not beating down the front door? Now, could that partially be because there's been a lot of work on my own self-confidence and self-empowerment? I'm sure as well. But also realistically, I guarantee that none of us right here and now can really say 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years from now that we're not going to absolutely love who we were. And we want to be able to make sure that we're not forgetting those memories. So, if you're not necessarily in the position right here and now where you think that you're ever going to feel comfortable in front of the camera, then I guarantee that, again, by listening to this podcast, maybe going to YouTube or a couple different places, you're going to be able to get in front of that camera. So just keep practicing, keep giving yourself that grace.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot here that we've talked about that's going to be really helpful for people for sure. Now, if people want to follow you, reach out to you, find out more about what you do, where should they be going?
I would love for you guys to join me over on Instagram. It's TFB Coach Christine, or you guys can come over and listen to us at the podcast. If you are thinking that you want to join in on the walking, moving, shaking kind of movement, please do join us at the brunch table. It is welcome to all. So time for brunch podcast.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. And I'll put that in the show notes as well, for sure. And our last, and I'm not going to say most important question, but important question is, what song is your favorite to lift your mood? Because we're going to add it to the playlist.
So hard to narrow it down to one. Do you have that where people are like, there's no way I could narrow it down to one?
Yes. I have allowed two before because someone was so distraught over the idea of one. Okay. But I fully understand.
I won't do that to you. I'm going to go right out of the gate again, owning up to, I want to hear more women saying that they're going to get in front of those cameras, that they're going to make those memories with their families, that they're going to be present and living their life. I'm going to go right out of the gate and say Kelly Clarkson's Whole Lotta Woman. Because if you listen to those lyrics and you don't feel a little extra sass after you're done with that, my friend, then I don't know what we need to do, but we will figure it out.
I love it. And I love Kelly Clarkson. And that is a new song. It is not on there yet. So fantastic. Thank you. Wonderful. For that.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to chat with you.
I think this is really going to be a favorite episode for a lot of people. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. OMG, I would be so honored if you would take a moment, leave a rating, leave a review, or take a screenshot and share on your social media. Let's get this message out further into the world. Now it's time to head down to the show notes to see the resources I mentioned. We may not have learned this before, but it sure is powerful now.